Withology is about collaboration, inspiration, dedication, influence, and positive manifestation. It's about the stories behind success, something everyone needs a little bit of help achieving. Join host Brian Tierney, CEO of Brian Communications, as he interviews the most successful business and industry leaders to hear the fascinating stories about their personal journeys and the people who have helped them get to where they are today. Welcome to Withology.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Withology. I'm Brian Tierney, CEO of Future Tense Health and Brian Communications, and today I'm tremendously excited to welcome Toni Pergolin. Toni is the president and CEO of Bancroft. Bancroft is one of the country's leading nonprofits that provides programs and services for individuals with autism, intellectual and developmental disabilities, and those in need of neurological rehabilitation. It's located in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and Bancroft improves the lives of more than 2,000 individuals every single year. Bancroft was founded back in 1883 by Margaret Bancroft, and she was an educator based here in Philadelphia, where I sit right now. Margaret believed that all people have a fundamental right to receive education, regardless of their ability, regardless of their age, and in an effort to support the lives of children with developmental disabilities, she established her own institution to promote individualized attention with patience and love for those students with special needs. Toni Pergolin has played an instrumental role at Bancroft over the past 18 years. She joined as Chief Financial Officer in 2004, and she led this amazing restructuring effort to save Bancroft from bankruptcy. She spearheaded a $10 million turnaround in just 2 years. She later transitioned to Chief Operating Officer before being named President and CEO in 2006. She also led the fundraising and creation of Bancroft's incredible $75 million Welsh Campus, named after the Welshes, Ray and his wife Joanne Welsh, in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, which opened in January of 2018. She's a sought-after leader and thinker in the nonprofit space, chairs the board of Pierce College, and she also sits on the boards of Fulton Financial Corporation and Inspira Health. Her first book, Too Important to Fail: Leadership Lessons for Nonprofits, was published in 2020, and it is a terrific read. It's a quick read, it's a fun read, and there's so much heart in it. And Toni, that's just a way to begin and say it's an absolute pleasure to have you join me today for this episode of Withology. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start back at the beginning, if we could. Tell me, you grew up in Pittsburgh. Both of your parents were accountants, and so that was part of what your DNA was, I guess, early on in life. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and also the impact your parents had when you were thinking about what you wanted to do with your life, what your career might be.
That's great. Yes. So I'm a Pittsburgh girl, and I grew up with 3 brothers. So I was the only girl of 3 boys with 4 children, and both my parents were accountants, as you said. What's interesting is, for me, that's what they were, so that was the path I was going to take. None of my 3 brothers became accountants, so I don't know, they certainly saw a different path. But I was very intrigued by, my first accounting class and knew from the beginning that that's what I wanted to do. Looking back, and I think you never really understand the impact your parents have on you until you're much older, but, my mother for sure was a huge mentor and made a huge impact. In my career, when I graduated from Penn State with my degree in accounting, she sat me down and said, listen, there's 2 things you got to do that she didn't do, that she felt held her back as an accountant. And she said, you got to get your CPA. Like, even if you never use it, it just gives you a status that you deserve. And the second thing you need to do to be a successful accountant is learn how to play golf, because you will be the only one in the office when everybody's out playing golf. So the summer before I moved to Philly, I got my CPA. I studied for my CPA and passed the test, and I learned how to play golf with my mother, by the way. So she definitely had a huge impact on me.
What a great early lesson, too. And so practical, too, when you get down to it, right? I mean, if everybody's out there playing golf, you want to be sure I'll be that, too, right?
Yeah.
And how's the golf game? Should I ask that, or how's that going?
It started off well, but the bad back kind of eliminated that a couple years ago, which is fine. I got what I needed from it, so it was all good.
I gave a little background on Bancroft. Talk a little bit about the critical need it serves, because it's such an amazing place.
Thank you, Brian. I'm sure everybody has heard the statistics about the number of children born on the autism spectrum over the years. Today, it's 1 in every 59 babies in the country is born on the autism spectrum. In the state of New Jersey, it's 1 of 38. So the need is there for sure. And, there's all kinds of resources out there. Every child, I'm sure you've heard this too. You've seen one child with autism. You've seen one child with autism. So there is an array of resources out there. But all families, and specifically, the children, they really need support to get through this, through their growth plan, which is different than the typical child. So, at Bancroft, what I was really amazed with when I first got here is Bancroft does not try to cure people with autism. There are a lot of organizations that we partner with who are trying to research it and find out the cure. But at Bancroft, we're focused on taking you as you are and helping you live the best life you can live, with or without, with your disability, right? We look at your abilities, not your disability. And I was really, really intrigued by that when I first came here, that it's truly like everybody has a different way to get to living their best life. And that is what their care is around. And I think at Bancroft, we do it not only really well, but what is our biggest differentiator is that we have a continuum of care. So from the day you enter our system, our organization, and it can be as early as 3 years old at preschool, we're here for you through your school age. You can go to our schools. If you need residential help, we can provide that. And it helps not only the individual we serve really improve on their ability to be, functional and life skills and school skills, all those types of things. It's really a wonderful feeling from a family perspective that there's a place that their child can learn and grow at the pace that they need to. And then when you become an adult, you can move into our adult program. You live in a group home with people who are like you. We help you get a job. You have friends. You go on vacations. And then as you get older, you transition into our over 55 facility. And now you're in the retirement mode. So it's truly a continuum of life. And, I always like to use Andy as my example. Andy has been at Bancroft for 55 years. He's been our longest standing person served today. And he lives in the retirement program. And, for 55 years, Bancroft is his home, his family, his friends. He is living his best life. And for the person who just got admitted today, I want to make sure we're here as long as we need to be for them so that they can live their best life.
What Bancroft does, that you've touched on too, is for the families, those parents, siblings, grandparents, others who are so worried to see the comfort, the joy, the growth that their daughter or son experiences there. And to know that in the hurt of dealing with autism, there's this peace and comfort and smile. And I know families who feel just that and just have this it's just so comforting.
We're all parents. I have 2 sons. I want the best for them, whatever that is. And parents of children with autism want the same. And so to have a support system and an organization that really allows them to learn and grow, most times beyond the family's wildest dreams that their child could do these things, it's really a sense of pride for them.
Yeah. Toni, you describe yourself as a numbers person. Your background, of course, is originally in finance. But you wrote such an eloquent and thoughtful book about nonprofits and leadership overall. What inspired you to write the book?
Thank you. I would kind of tell the story of the turnaround to different people. They would say, you should really write a book. And I was really not at all interested in writing a book about a turnaround. I mean, turnarounds happen every day in organizations all the time. And quite honestly, that's a CFO's job. So I didn't see it as something worth writing about, to be honest with you. But what I did really want to capture in the turnaround piece is the story of Bancroft. Because I really did feel that that was a story worth telling. When I arrived here at Bancroft, I'd never heard of it before. I didn't know organizations existed like this. And I was really in awe of the work that was done here and how they really helped families, how so many staff worked here. And it was really a part of their community and, their family. So I felt that there was really a need to tell the story of Bancroft. And I tell it, as you know, really through the stories of the families, right? So I had a lot of family stories. And because they tell the story of Bancroft, I think better than anybody, right, is how Bancroft helped them. I also thought that it was really important for people to understand about how nonprofits work. I think there's a lot of myths out there. And I learned this as I would be telling people that I was the CEO of a nonprofit. And I felt like they acted like I was running a lemonade stand, like you don't have to make money. Oh, that must be so relaxing and so nice. And I mean, it's really one of the most complex and challenging positions I've held in my entire career. And so, I felt like people didn't really understand just the importance of nonprofits, how they really, I think they start because there's a gap in the system, right? So there's a nonprofit there that are serving really vital needs in a community. And they're vulnerable. And, without community support and philanthropic support and volunteer support, they might not make it. That I thought was a story worth telling. And for me to be able to share my story through that, to really make that point, is really what intrigued me to write it.
Before this, you were at Penn Medicine. That's a huge institution with, I guess, now 42,000 employees. And
right.
It's very challenging times when you were there and getting through it. Now to be in this role where, you're the CEO, and when you first got there too, the challenges that they had, it's an interesting, a lot of CFOs have a hard time transitioning to the CEO role. But yet, business crises aren't just financial crises. They're crises, as you point out in the book, too. They're much more than that. To fix the finances, you have to fix the operations. You have to fix so many other parts of it. Talk a little bit about what you learned there, and also just kind of some of the specific things that you did to turn Bancroft around.
I think you spoke it right. I mean, I came to the organization clearly as a CFO. I saw the numbers. I wanted to learn about another turnaround, perhaps go through a bankruptcy. I came with I really want to use my financial skills here. What I learned pretty quickly is, while the financials for sure were in disarray, I was really drawn to the mission of the organization. And there is that balance there. You need a leader, I believe, that understands the business aspect, but really has a heart and soul for the mission, because every decision you make has to have both in mind, right? You can't just make all the business decisions, because you most likely will not really be supporting the mission. But if you're only making a decision on the mission, you financially will be struggling. So it really takes a leader that understands really both sides. And, when I talk about what we did to turn it around, I would say the very first thing I did, which I think is important in any organization for a turnaround, is to be transparent about the financial position of the organization. So the first thing I learned was this organization was truly on the verge of bankruptcy, and none of the management team even knew. So if they don't know, they're not changing their behavior. They're just doing what they've always done. So when I arrived and I was like, look, here's what's happening. We're out spending money and we don't have any in our ATM account, right? We're going and taking the money out of the account. There's none there. But until somebody tells you there's none there, you're not going to stop taking the money out. So it was really the first, okay, guys, let me tell you where we are. And then let me help you understand how every decision you make in the operations impacts the financial statement. So there was this huge education around, if you could do this or this, in a situation where we are in now, try to be more efficient, try to be more effective. And so I would say that was probably the biggest thing today. And still one of my favorite meetings is the monthly financial meeting, because I see how people have learned how that they understand their decisions, that they need to be balanced too. What's right for the individual we serve, what's right for our staff, but what's right for our financial position. And you really need to think about both. So once we got through the education piece, then I really focused on what the data told me. We had programs in states all over the country. And once we could really get the data that showed which programs were profitable and which ones weren't, it helped us understand where we're doing well and where we weren't. And the ones that weren't were mostly in the states. We had California, we had Louisiana, we had Maine, and we ended up divesting those programs. We had to get smaller before we could get bigger. They're tough decisions. This is where, strong leadership and courage comes into play in making these decisions. But I can tell you that every program we divested, we found somebody to take them on. So no individual that we served was sent home because we divested a program, which was important to us. We didn't want to just close, right? We wanted to make sure that they had a place to go, which we did. So we closed some programs. I would say another really tough decision we made was we outsourced our business office. So, the billing and the collecting really got complex. And, just as it has in healthcare over the years, we really saw that our systems were not strong enough to be able to bill appropriately. Our structure of billing and, some of our practices were not really able to adjust to what the funders really wanted in their billing. So big decision, but we outsourced it. And again, we gave every staff member an opportunity to go with the outsource company. So again, we were thoughtful in our decisions, but everyone was about how to stabilize the organization. And, I would say that too was one of the main reasons we were able to get through it, because when you outsource this to people who really know how to do this, they were able to turn around within 3 months. We started getting money back in again. So there was a lot of, I would say, really hard decisions to make, but we're here today because we were able to make them in a thoughtful and really timely way.
Yeah. Those transitions, I've seen them and I've experienced them both as, CEO of a large organization as well as advising people. It's establishing the empathy up front, but we do need to make these tough financial decisions or else we're not going to be able to make there. And you did it so well.
I think it's also, as a leader, allowing yourself to say, what we're really good at Bancroft is treating autism, right? Is working with people with autism. We don't have to be the best in billing and all the different things. We can allow ourselves to bring in the experts in those areas because they were there. We're the experts in autism, and that's okay, right? So it's, again, just really being able to explain that and have people understand that both the mission and the margin are important.
Toni, in your book, Too Important to Fail, Leadership Lessons for Nonprofits, you describe 3 different styles of leadership: servant, transformational, and transactional leadership, and how each of these styles plays a critical role. How did your leadership style morph as you transitioned between these 3 C-suite level roles within Bancroft?
So those are the 3 leadership style that I would say that I have used over the years, and I would also say that I still use today. I'll start with servant leadership because to me that's the foundational. And that is undeniably that every decision you make is what's best for the organization. And taking yourself out of it may not be the best for me. It may not be best for the individuals specifically on my team or, specifically for one person, but it's for the organization overall. I named the book Too Important to Fail because I truly believe that about Bancroft, that it really is too important to fail. So making sure that every decision we make is so that Bancroft is always here for the good of the whole is really important. I think that's the foundation. I think it's important in all nonprofits for sure, in leadership for sure. I mean, that's what I believe leaders really should exhibit, is that they're there for the organization. The transactional and the transformational, I think, I kind of bounce between them. I did then, I still do today. The transactional to me is when you as a leader sometimes need to get very deep into what the details are, what's happening in your organization from a order, structure, how things are process improvement type thing. For sure, through the turnaround, I was a complete transactional leader. I mean, I knew exactly what needed to be done, and I really led the team through it. I mean, I was grateful that I had a team of people who said, listen, we want to help with this. We just don't know what to do. And we could be very transactional on the steps that we needed to take. Once we got through the turnaround and we stabilized a little bit, then I used a transformational leadership style to really help the organization grow and really think differently about how they operated. And here's an example of that. When I came, Bancroft was, it was 75 million, so not teeny tiny. I mean, there's a lot of nonprofits that are small today, but even at 75 million, they really operated like a mom and pop. They were very we're poor, we're supposed to be poor, everything we have is secondhand, and that's just how it is. And I transformed that to say, that's not how it has to be. I mean, the people that we serve deserve new things just like everybody else. And if we can manage this margin and mission, then we can begin to really see ourselves as proud and state of the art and doing what's the best for the individual he serves, not just woe is me, we're small. That was a struggle a little bit somewhere along the way. I mean, it was so ingrained in people. A lot of people at Bancroft back then and still today have been at Bancroft their entire career, right? So it's hard for them to see it any different, but I do think that I was able to lead them, especially as we grew, right? And we don't grow just because we want to be the biggest or we want to have the highest number of revenue. we want to grow so we can provide more access to our services because so many people out there need it. Once I could get their minds around the growing was for the people that we serve and not for the organization, people will much more succumb to it. And it really led to the new school. That was so just iconic in this organization that be state of the art. I mean, we had state of the art of nothing. I mean, we're 130 years old. We looked 130 years old. But it was really transformational to help people really think about it can be different. And so, I would say those were transactional during the turnaround, transformational through it. But today I would say I'm even doing it again. We're looking at the strategic plan. I mean, my job is to think about 3 to 5 years. That's all transformational, is how do I get people to see how we need to operate different today? So it's fun, it's exciting, but it's like being in both and knowing, when you go in that transactional, when you go deep down inside, you got to let yourself back up or you're going to make everybody crazy when I'm down there.
Yeah. Healthy things grow, and sometimes people, we always have done it this way, which is fine, and let's take the best of that. But at the same time, plants, people, things need to grow. With our Withology podcast, we explore how every successful person has people around them. All of it has come because of the help of other people. It's the with part when we made up the word Withology. So
I like
talk
it.
a little bit about that. And I know one particular person that was instrumental, who I knew he was actually a neighbor of mine in my neighborhood, but also just such a kind person too. I'm thinking of Ray Welsh. Why don't you talk a little bit about the Welsh?
Yes. I mean, Ray was really part of my recruitment here. Ray was a board member at Bancroft, and his son was served at Bancroft. And Bancroft was really important to him. And, I will say with absolution that this organization is alive and well and thriving today because of Ray and Joanne Welsh.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can really look at them as people who we should all be inspired by and aspire to be on just the impact that they've made on so many things, and Bancroft was just one of really many in Ray's world. But when I arrived, and again, Ray loved this organization so much that when it started going through some of the financial challenges, he brought a group of us from Penn over. He was also a board member of Penn. He brought us over and talked to us about the importance of this organization. And, when I think about the impact that he made, Ray and Joanne, not only did they give us, their support through time, I mean, he was the interim CEO at one point for a short amount of time. Whatever this organization needed, Ray stepped up and did it. Personally, he was my partner through this turnaround. I mean, I was the operations leader. He provided the support. And what I mean by that is when you lead a turnaround, it didn't get bad overnight. It doesn't get better overnight, right? So it was a whole 2-year plan, and I wouldn't have been able to use that time if we didn't have enough cash flow to make payroll every week. And so he provided through very significant donations. He gave me an interest-free loan, or, not me, the organization, all these different ways so that I could focus on stabilizing the organization. And he believed in me. He believed in the organization. He was my partner. He got me through that. When we went on the capital campaign for the campus, he, of course, was Joanne and Ray were the first donation to the capital campaign. And he went on every meeting with me. And, it's hard to say no to Ray. So I really miss him for many reasons, but that one of them. He was wonderful because he was the role model and he could really speak it. I was so proud to name the campus after the Welsh family. When you pull into the campus, there's a huge, huge monument that has their name on it. But even more than that, once we named it, I asked the team, I said, as we were building it would be like the Mount Laurel campus, the Mount Laurel campus. And I said, okay, from now on, I want to call it the Welsh campus because I want that name spoken throughout this organization for years to come because people will be like, who was this man? I want people to ask, why did we name it the Welsh campus? So people will always know the story of Ray and Joanne Welsh and their impact on Bancroft.
Yeah, and such humble leadership too. I mean, I can tell you over a dozen people I know who he was their first boss in different areas. I saw he was just, and he and Joanne, his partner and everything, were just so humble. And yet I didn't know how significant until I dug into this that they had been there. I've seen him in so many other ways.
Yeah. We're fortunate we have his grandson, Brady, now on our board.
Oh,
and
great.
He is coming over soon with his wife and Joanne to see the campus now all in full activity and all that. And it's really nice to have the Welsh family continue to be a part of our organization.
That's wonderful. I have one last question. Sometimes we do this thing called one word, one thought, okay? It's pretty straightforward. We'll do it in rapid fire. Let me just throw some words at you and just see inclusion.
So here's my thought on inclusion. I think it's a new buzzword, if you will, today, but it's something that I've believed in for a very, very long time, both personally and here at Bancroft. Our tagline at Bancroft is one world for everyone, meaning we want you to be your authentic self. We want you to be who you are, and we want you to belong to us. And I think inclusion is all about being who you are and being accepted for who you are.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought. Hope.
Hope. I love the word hope. I love it personally. I love it again for the organization. I think it is something we should all have to really drive us forward. I want to hope for something every day. Hope for the next thing, hope for the goals, hope for my kids. Hope, I think, is what allows us as individuals to really better ourselves every day. And I see it every day at Bancroft. I mean, these families have so much hope in Bancroft and so much hope for their children. And we're able to really help them achieve that hope that they've worked on for so long. I love the word hope. It's a great one.
It's a good one for all of us to remember when you're going through tough times. You can look at it that way, or you can look at it and say, all right, what do we do going forward? Then there's a lot to be hopeful for. Education.
Education, again, personally and at Bancroft, I'm such a believer in education. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to have education myself provided to my children. I'll tell you, as the chairwoman at Pierce College, I've seen it at an even higher level. These individuals who didn't have the opportunities like I had handed to me, and they worked for it anyway. You can get educated in different ways at different times of your life. Education never stops. What I love about it is the absolute value that we all get from it. And here at Bancroft, I mean, education is one of the reasons that these children are in Bancroft today, because the system says every child should be educated. And to watch it really firsthand at the impact that education makes, even on children with disabilities, is amazing. I mean, education, I think it betters us all. And it's not just going to school, it's learning every day and really taking what you're learning and making impact from it.
And one final one, which kind of wraps into everything else and certainly is emblematic of what you've been able to achieve there at Bancroft: success.
Success, another great word. You know, I like to look at success in the smaller things, right? So not just the big campus or the big this, but the little things that happen during the day. Like you get all the green lights and you're not late for work today. That's success, right? I didn't spill the coffee that I got from the drive-thru like I did yesterday. That's success, right? So it's allowing yourself to see success throughout your whole day, right? It's not just the big accomplishments, and you do need to stop and think about them, but it's all those little successes that really make the big ones the best ones. You know, and again, we see it in the individuals we serve. Their successes are so little and so meaningful and impactful. So I love to see success throughout the day rather than, anything big.
That's a great place for us to wrap. And I'm going to be thinking about that later on this afternoon as well, Toni, when various things occur as the day-to-day goes through, and to be thinking about, hope, success. Nothing is anything but thinking make it so, I think was from Hamlet. And I always loved that line too when I was a little boy.
I like it.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's been a pleasure to have you on and Withology and to talk about your life and the tremendous impact that you've had with 2,000 lives impacted every year at Bancroft and those you serve. You have this unique blend of compassion and strategic thinking and foresight and finance and understanding. Numbers are important too, but you have to have more than that. You have to have vision and hope. And you've done such a great job, and Bancroft shines. And so thank you so much for being part of this. And thank you so much. It's just been wonderful. Thank you, Toni.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. It's been great just talking to you about it. And I wish you all the luck with the Withology. I can't wait to listen to them all.
Great. Thank you. Thank you to our listeners, and thank you for tuning in to Withology. And we hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did, and look forward to hearing some other great leaders as well. Thank you, Toni.